let's create a test incident and we'll assign it to the service desk assignment group. Caller, maybe we'll put someone random here, and we have created this incident. After saving this record, this incident is getting logged in your ServiceNow instance. And let's go back to Power BI desktop. Again, see, we have 42 incidents in totality. In service desk queue, we have 9. Let's see what happens if we refresh the data. So again, after refreshing, it's going to hit the driver. The driver will send the query back to the database, and you'll get back the records for whatever's there in that table from ServiceNow. So it's hitting the driver now. And apparently it should change the values from 42 for total incidents to 43. And the service desk one should be 10 after refresh. Okay. So this is what I wanted to show you. Isn't this wonderful? We see 43 incidents now. One incident has already come in right from the ServiceNow database. And even in the service desk queue, we see that there are 10 incidents from 9 incidents which were there before. Hello everyone. Welcome to this video on how to connect Power BI to ServiceNow directly for free without any third-party connectors. Yes, you heard it right, without any third-party connectors. So we've all been looking online for a solution which helps us connect from Power BI to ServiceNow directly. And unfortunately, we land onto those links where those drivers are not that reliable, or maybe they're paid. And at sometimes it doesn't even serve our reporting needs. So we were also looking for this kind of solution since long time. And fortunately, we landed onto the ServiceNow website, the ServiceNow store to be specific. And we found the ServiceNow ODBC driver. So this driver is really helpful if you want to connect from Power BI to ServiceNow directly. On top of that, it's provided by ServiceNow. So it's very secure, it's reliable, and we have also tested it for the past couple of days now with our PDIs. So it's worked wonderfully. And let's start with the overview of this driver. So how does it work? See, the ServiceNow ODBC driver, you install it on a Windows machine. This is the same Windows machine which has Power BI desktop or even the on-premise data gateway installed. Essentially, this driver will help establish connectivity with the database associated with your ServiceNow instance. On top of that, it's not going to allow you high privileges on the database. It's just read-only access. I repeat, it's just read-only access. It won't allow you to update the records in the database. So if your ServiceNow admins are concerned with this approach, let them know that this driver is not going to provide you any high privileges. It's just select commands or select statements which are going to run on the database, and you'll just use the data for reporting. So you won't update the records in the database. So that's pretty much it. This driver, you'll connect from Power BI desktop or even the on-premise data gateway. You will initiate those queries. You'll send those queries from this driver, and those queries will go to the database, and you'll get back the records from the driver itself back to the Power BI desktop or even on-premise data gateway, from the gateway back to your Power BI service reports. So the installation is also very easy. It's nothing difficult there. We'll show you the entire process from the get-go. There's nothing to worry about in terms of security, like I mentioned before, because ServiceNow themselves, they're providing this on their official store and it's free to use. So that was the overview. It's just a simple driver. You have to download it, and it has a couple of prerequisites which we are going to cover after this. Okay, the first prerequisite is Java. So any machine which you install this driver on, this driver has a dependency on Java. So we have to install Java. That also is free to use according to the new Oracle licenses. We can install the free latest Java. I'll show that process as well after the prerequisite part. So second is obviously the driver setup file, which we get from the ServiceNow store. Your ServiceNow admins can go there, log in, and it's free to download. So they can download and share it with you, and you can install it on your laptop. If not laptop, if you have an on-premise data gateway as well for Power BI service connectivity, your Windows Server admins can install it on their Windows servers. The third is an ODBC user created in ServiceNow by the ServiceNow admins, of course. So this user is just like a database user. This has to be created in ServiceNow. It has to have a ODBC role. So you'll supply this user details from Power BI desktop and even from the ODBC driver configuration manager. And then this user will authenticate you to access the records in the database associated with your ServiceNow instance for reporting. And of course, the last one is basic SQL knowledge. So you only need basic SQL, and of course couple of where statements. You have to combine them, put some date conditions obviously because you don't want to return back a lot of data, but that's pretty much it. Nothing more than that, just basic SQL is enough. So we'll just start with the installation part. Now how do we go about it? Of course the first step is to download and install Java because that's a prerequisite for the driver. So let's go to our web browser and type in Java. And of course, you want the Oracle one because the latest ones are free. Okay, so like we see here, I'll repeat again. They are free to redistribute at no cost under the Oracle no fee terms and conditions. So this is the latest one. The latest drivers, they are not having any paid model to them. It's just a free license. So you don't have to worry about the cost for Java either. That's what I wanted to highlight. Of course, we want the Windows package. So we'll select Windows. And then let's select the MSI installer because it would be easier for us to install that way. Java installation is very easy. It's a plain simple setup. You don't have to jump through a lot of hoops for that. Okay, so we've downloaded the Java installer. Let's install it on our machine. Let's move ahead with next. The default installation directory is fine. Press next. Again, we're installing this because the ODBC driver, the ServiceNow ODBC driver has a dependency on Java. So it requires Java to be installed as a prerequisite. That's why we're installing this first. And after that, we'll install the driver. Then we'll configure it. And then we'll move over to Power BI to connect to our ServiceNow instances database. And then we can do our reporting from that. So it's going to ask for admin credentials. If you're not an admin, reach out to your sysadmins for admin credentials because maybe in your corporate network, you're not the system administrators of your own devices. Same is the case with Windows servers as well. That's it. So we have installed Java. That was straightforward. Let's move to the next step now. Okay, so I'll just point it here. We have downloaded and installed Java. Next, we have to create a ServiceNow user with ODBC role to query data from Power BI. So let's go to a ServiceNow instance. So this you probably won't have access to. You have to reach out to your ServiceNow admins who will create an ODBC role, ODBC user, having an ODBC role for you. I'll show you the process nevertheless, because if they get stuck somewhere, maybe they can refer to this video or you can help them figure out. So I'll just type in users again in the Alt tab of ServiceNow, and let's create a new user on top right. So this user will be helpful. It's like a database user. If you consider accessing a relational database management system, the same way this will help us authenticate the ServiceNow instance. So let's give it a friendly name, maybe ODBC test. First name is not required, but maybe I'll just put in ODBC as a placeholder. And of course, for the user ID, just remember, don't enter special characters because it might come in the way. You can maybe use underscores or numbers, but avoid special characters in the user ID. So we've given ODBC test for now. And that's pretty much it. I'll save this so that it'll create the user for us. Okay, let's set a password for this one. For now, I'll generate a password. I'll copy it to the clipboard and I'll save it. Okay, that's it. I'll note it down in a notepad file as well so that I can use it for testing it out. Okay, so I have the password with me. Now next step is adding the role. So this is very important. This helps the ServiceNow instance figure out that this is an ODBC privilege user so that it will let it connect to the database and run queries on it. So let's add the ODBC role. I'll search for the ODBC role. And let's add it to the selected list and save it. Okay, So right off the bat, we see as soon as you add the ODBC role, you get couple of inherited roles. Out of those roles, the most important ones are the ITIL and the SOAP query. The SOAP query one will allow you to run queries on the database, which is associated with your ServiceNow instance. And the second one is the ITIL, which gives you access to the core tables of ServiceNow, which is obviously the incident table or maybe something like that, all sorts of tables. So these two are important roles, but since you gave the ODBC role, these will come along with it as an inherited role. So that's all. That's pretty much it. Let's test this user out. Let's see if we are able to log in with this user ID. So I'll take the domain name of my ServiceNow instance. I'll go to the different browser which I have, Edge. And we'll test out the password and credentials if we are able to log in. So it was the ODBC test user, and the password is the auto-generated password, which we are going to change. Okay, I'm able to log in. It will ask me for a new password. So I'll give a new password. Okay, sorry, this was the current password. And then it will ask me for a new password. Okay, let's see if we can log in with this ODBC user just for testing it out. Great. So we're able to log in. On the top, you also see that this is the ODBC user, and it's fine. It's working. That's it. So we have completed this step. Let's go back to the presentation now. So we have created a ServiceNow user with ODBC role. That's done. Now the third step is downloading the ODBC driver setup file from ServiceNow store. I already have it downloaded, but I'll show you where to get it from. So if you look up with the ServiceNow ODBC driver keyword online, you'll get a link with ServiceNow documentation. It has a really vast documentation, so if you want to refer, you can also refer the ServiceNow documentation for this driver. They have laid it out pretty well. That's where I learned everything from. So they are going to tell you how to set it up, which I'm also going to show you now. And we also have the installation part. So there you'll get the download link. Here it is, download and install the ODBC driver. And you have the links here. So as you can give these links to your ServiceNow admins, and they'll essentially download this from the ServiceNow store with their login ID. It's pretty straightforward from there. So I already have this with me. I just showed you where to get the files from. So I have it. You just have to inform the ServiceNow admins to download this file for you. Next is the installation of the ODBC driver. Okay, let's start with the installation now. Okay, so I have this installation file. Please make sure to run this as an administrator. I'm repeating this again. Please make sure to run this as an administrator. Otherwise, this setup won't work properly. It will ask for an admin credential. If you're not an admin, reach out to your sysadmins. So this has started the installation of the ODBC driver, the ServiceNow ODBC driver. Okay, let's hit on next. Read the agreement entirely. Make sure you comply with the agreement, accept the terms and conditions. The destination folder is fine. Just keep it default so that it won't come in the way later on. The default service name is also fine. Now it will ask you for the Java location, the jvm.dll file. Since we already installed Java, we know that the file will be in program files. Then we have the Java directory. Inside of Java, we have bin, and then server is the place where you will have the jvm.dll file. So you just have to point it there. Since we already installed Java, it's showing up here. That's why we installed Java before. And that's all the rest of the things are pretty same. Don't change it. The defaults are better. Don't try to play around with them. And this also, the default one is fine. Just click on next and let it install automatically for you. So this is the entire workflow. First, you have to install Java because the driver has a dependency on it. And right off the bat, when you start the installation, it is going to ask you for the Java location. That's it. So we have installed the driver as well. This step is also done. Okay, let's go back to the presentation now. We have already installed ODBC driver. Now we have to configure the data source or DSN in the ODBC console. So what is the ODBC console? You have an ODBC console in your Windows search. Just run it as an administrator again. It is going to prompt for the admin credentials. After entering the admin credentials, there are two DSNs which you can configure. DSNs are nothing but data source names. You can either create a user DSN or you can create a system DSN. System DSNs are better because if you have it on a Windows server, everyone's going to be able to use it instead of a specific user. But it's not a showstopper, so either one is fine. I'll go to system DSN and let's double click on ServiceNow and we'll test it out. Okay, so for the custom properties, just you have to supply a couple of things here so that this driver will know it has to reach your ServiceNow instance and it won't go anywhere else. So supply the URL for your ServiceNow instance with URL equals and just pick the domain name of your ServiceNow instance. Don't pick the other part, just the domain name. And remove the last slash. So this is your ServiceNow instance URL. Let's test if we are able to connect. So the data source username we have given is ODBC test and the password is the one which I have given after generating the password. So there are a couple of other custom properties. The documentation is full of them, but at this particular time, what matters is your URL, your ServiceNow instance URL, which is your domain name, and then the batch size. So batch size, I'll be honest, you'll have to play around with this batch size. For us, 500 batch size works. Batch size is nothing but how many records are returned back in one single query call to the database. So you have to play around with this. 2000 is default. If it is not working for you, try to tweak it a little bit here and there. Even you can check all these parameters in the ServiceNow documentation as well. You just type in ServiceNow ODBC driver documentation and you'll find the custom properties. Just add it with the custom properties keyword and you'll find it on Google. For now, I'll keep everything as default. And let's see if we are able to connect to the ServiceNow instance with the user which we have created. So it's going to see the URL and now it's saying that the connection test was successful. I'm able to connect to the ServiceNow instance database directly from this ODBC driver. So for now, URL matters and even the batch size if you want to change it. It's up to you how many records you want. Check the documentation as well. 500 is what worked for us, but keep playing with it. As long as it serves your use case, it's going to help you. So that's all. That was the configuration of ODBC data sources. We just tested it out and it is working. Now comes the best part. We have to connect from PowerBI desktop. So I already have PowerBI desktop opened on my screen. So this time around, get data will be ODBC because we have already created an ODBC data source. So I'll type in ODBC. So this will show all the DSNs that we have already created on our system. And since we already created ServiceNow, I'll select ServiceNow. And now let's move over to the advanced options. See here you'll supply the query, the SQL query for what data you want back from the database. For now, I'll just take something from the incident table and you know what, let's take just a couple of, maybe one row of records so that we'll see how many columns are coming back and what are the column names, because some people might not be aware of what are the columns there in ServiceNow database. So let's just take first row and then we'll put column filters later on. And one more thing to note is please use a where clause. You don't want to mess up the database. This is a production ServiceNow database. Please use a where clause, restrict your data with assignment groups, date conditions. So for now, I'll just put a sys created on maybe after 2023. But please put a where condition because you don't want to bring back all of the records from the database. So this query is fine for now. We'll just select top 1 records, just the first row, whichever the database sees, with a sys created on condition. So I'll show you how to find the table names as well. I mean, of course, most of you might not be aware what is a table name behind the scenes in the database. So we'll check that part as well. So username is again the same username which we have already created in ServiceNow, which is ODBC test. I have the password with me. And this much is enough. It's just a database credentials. The user which we have created in ServiceNow for querying data from PowerBI. Querying data from the ServiceNow instance database and initiating a connection from PowerBI, which goes through the ODBC driver. So this is how we are going to run queries on the database directly. Remember your where conditions again. Let's go to transform data. We'll see what data we're getting back. So we are now in the Power Query editor. So we do see data, and that's a good sign. Our driver has worked really well. It went back to the database. Now I'll give you a couple of key points here. See, there are few fields with the DV tag or the DV prefix and without the DV prefix. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So we have a DV assigned to and an assigned to. So the assigned to without the DV prefix, this is a sys-ID. So these are the database values, and these won't help you in reporting. Maybe if you want to create a data model, this will help you. But in reality, if you want to report on something, the values without DVs won't help you because these are the system sys-IDs. So these are the database values. What you want is the one with DVs. So these are the display values or the friendly names which you see on the ServiceNow front end. For example, we see the assigned to person here. So I know for a fact that these are going to help us a lot. So you can bring back these columns, right? If you go back to the settings again, I know what all columns are there. So I just want all the records for now, maybe. I mean, all the fields. And then let's just bring back, maybe I'll show you the distinguishing part of DV. And the assignment group. And even all the other columns with the star. So it's just plain simple SQL. Again, please note that put a where condition, maybe a date condition or an assignment group filter for you to bring back couple of records. Don't bring back the entire database. It's obviously not going to come. It's going to time out, but just don't cause any problems for your ServiceNow admins. So I'm going to bring back everything, all the columns that I have, all the records that I have after 2023 with this date condition. Since it's a new instance, it won't have a lot of data for incident. And we have all the data which was there apparently after 2023 Jan. So here we see there are the display values of assignment groups, which are the friendly names. And we also see the sys-IDs, the database values. So it's up to you. Instead of doing select star from, you just have to select the database values one by one. Don't select everything. Just take only the columns that you want. That's the best approach even for Power BI. You don't want a lot of junk which you're not going to use in Power BI desktop models. It's going to slow things down. And even you don't even want to bother the database with all these entries. So just try to keep things simple. For now, this is enough. Let's go back to Power BI desktop. We'll load this data what we have from ServiceNow database. So this essentially, it's running a query from the ODBC driver. That driver is sort of acting as an API layer, and then it's sending the queries back to the ServiceNow instance database. And please note, it's not going to give you any high privileges, even if you try to run an alter maybe, which is a DDL command, or maybe DML commands like update, delete, insert. It won't allow you to do that. By default, it's only configured out of the box to give you select access or read only access. That's pretty much it. If someone comes back and says that that's a security problem, let them know that the driver is configured to only give you select access. You won't be able to run any other commands on the database with this driver. Okay, so we've loaded the data. Things are a little slow because I've been running many things on this PC now, along with a couple of monitors attached to it. That's why it's taking the time to load the data in the model. And yes, this is the new version of Power BI Desktop as well. It's kind of slow for me because I'm already utilizing memory for other tasks along with this. So let this load. We'll see the incident records here. Meanwhile, I'll show you where to see the table names from. Okay, I think it's loaded already. Great. So let's create a sample report. Maybe you want to see the number of incidents. So I'll just maybe bring in the incident numbers. Let's put it on x-axis, and let's bring the distinct count, just the unique number of incidents per assignment group. So we have the DV assignment group, that is a display value, the friendly names of your assignment group. Let's enable the data labels as well. Let's give a title for this. So incidents by assignment groups. Much better. And we'll also see the total number of incidents that we have. So let's show it in a card visual for now. We won't do a lot of reporting because this is where you'll be more inclined towards. I mean, that's your creativity. I'm just showing you where to get the data from. So let's do a count of the incident numbers, and we have 42 incidents at the moment. Okay, now comes the cool part. Let's really test if the refreshes are going to work. If you create an incident in ServiceNow, let's see if it is going to show up in Power BI Desktop after you refresh it. So let's go back to the ServiceNow instance. And I'm going to create a new incident here. And for now, let's note, we have 42 incidents. And for example, in service desk queue, we have 9 incidents. So please make a note of this. We'll compare the new values when we create a new incident for service desk. So we have 9 incidents in service desk queue, in service desk assignment group, and in totality, we have 42 incidents in our ServiceNow instance. Let's create a test incident and we'll assign it to the service desk assignment group. Caller, maybe we'll put someone random here, and we have created this incident. After saving this record, this incident is getting logged in your ServiceNow instance. And let's go back to Power BI Desktop. Again, see, we have 42 incidents in totality. In service desk queue, we have 9. Let's see what happens if we refresh the data. So again, after refreshing, it's going to hit the driver. The driver will send the query back to the database, and you'll get back the records for whatever's there in that table from ServiceNow. So it's hitting the driver now. And apparently it should change the values from 42 for total incidents to 43. And the service desk one should be 10 after refresh. Okay. So this is what I wanted to show you. Isn't this wonderful? We see 43 incidents now. One incident has already come in right from the ServiceNow database. And even in the service desk queue, we see that there are 10 incidents from 9 incidents which were there before. So this is how the refreshes work. Obviously, there's a gateway required later on down the line when you publish it to Power BI service. We'll create a new video for gateway as well after this one reaches the right audience. So this is how you create those reports. You have a lot of columns as well. Don't bring back all of the data. Just bring as much as is required for your reporting use case. Okay, so we have successfully connected from Power BI with the ODBC driver. Now let's move to the next slide. So the $1 million question, where do we find the table names? Obviously, since I was already working with this, I knew what the table names were, where these were. So first is obviously you have to Google it. You just look up, okay, so I want to change requests. Why don't we Google what is the change request table name in ServiceNow? Since I know for a fact it is change_request, you just have to Google it. What is the name of change request table in ServiceNow, and you'll get a couple of results on Google. Maybe it will point to the ServiceNow docs. Either way, it's going to help you figure out what table it is and how do you query the data from that table. So you just have to supply that table in your from clause, and that's it. Obviously, so first is Google. You can Google it. Second is on any record in ServiceNow. I'll show you what I mean by that. If I have this incident record, on the top in the URL, I see incident.do. So ignore the dot do and anything that's before the slash. Incident, this is your table name. So this is another indicator of what is the real table name in ServiceNow. And that's what you're going to supply in your from clause. So this is just a second way. Obviously, Google is going to help you a lot, but it's just a nice trick to know right off the bat from the URL of ServiceNow. And there's a third way. Not all of the people might have access in your organization, but we can check it in the system definition tables. So if we go back to the ServiceNow homepage and look up tables, so it's going to be in system definition. I'll open the tables in new tab, and this will give me the list of all the tables that I have. If I look up with the change keyword, I'll get back whatever's there with the change keyword. So I have all these change related tables in ServiceNow. So these are the real names of those tables. So this is the one. This is the core change request table in ServiceNow, which is change underscore request. So this is the third way you know how to see the table names in ServiceNow. So that's it. We now know where the table names are. How do we construct our SQL queries? How do we put those table names in your from clause? So that's simple. Now, a couple of considerations before you start building these solutions for your stakeholders. The first one is do only lightweight reporting. See, I told you before as well, don't pull in all the columns, pull in only the columns which are necessary for your reporting, and don't bring back all the data. Just lightweight reporting. This driver, even ServiceNow documentation says that this is only for lightweight stuff. You don't want to go overboard with this. This is just for lightweight reporting. Don't do a lot of large scale data analysis on top of this. Just build it for your team. Don't build it for the entire organization. Second one is once you schedule the refreshes, do schedule those refreshes during non-business hours when the ServiceNow instance has a lot of downtime. So maybe 1 or 2 a.m. at the night, after midnight somewhere. That's the best time because those refreshes will be faster. Database will be more quicker to serve your queries. And on top of that, you won't be causing any harm because as soon as people start logging in, they start working on ServiceNow, they start creating tickets, they have a lot of volume there. So there's a lot of traffic on the instance. You don't want to do the refresh part at that time. So do it in non-business hours. That's the best time to schedule your refreshes. Third, this is the most important one. I mentioned this before as well. Always use a where clause to filter records written from your SQL query. No matter how small the where clause is, please use it. First one is obviously the date conditions. Try to put some dynamic date conditions if you want. Don't pull in all the data, put a where condition. If you're reporting for only a business unit or only an assignment group, maybe 2-3 assignment groups, then put those assignment groups, where assignment group, where DV underscore assignment group. And if you have a couple of assignment groups, then with an in condition, you put 2-3 assignment groups that you want to report data for. So don't pull back all of the data and then spread out your refreshes for different reports evenly. So this is a good one. If you have 4 or 5 reports published on the service, don't schedule the refresh parallelly, along with each other. Spread them across different intervals, maybe after 1 hour, every 1 hour at night, but don't do them parallelly. You don't want to hog up the database again with all those refreshes at the same time. So that's another consideration you have to keep in mind. And the last one, so this is also important. See, for any large scale reporting, you don't want to involve this driver or do anything of this sort. The best approach for any reporting use cases, you do some sophisticated ETL. You bring in people who know ETL, who do a lot of data engineering, and they pull the data. Maybe they'll pull the data from the ServiceNow APIs and they'll push it back to the data warehouse, to an enterprise data warehouse, and that data warehouse is then connected to Power BI desktop. So if you have any large scale reporting requirement, inform your stakeholders that you won't be able to do this from the driver. This driver is meant for lightweight reporting. if you want to do really large scale reporting, maybe on hundreds and thousands or even billions of incidents, then your best approach is bringing the data from ServiceNow into a data warehouse with couple of scheduled jobs, an ETL team working on it, and then you connect your Power BI desktop or even Power BI service to the data warehouse. Don't directly connect from Power BI to ServiceNow for any large scale reporting use case. This is just for lightweight. That was the next consideration. So please keep all of these in mind. Don't go overboard with that. I know this is really cool, but just don't go overboard. Now let's go to the troubleshooting part. So first is the proxy details. So let's say if you're working in a corporate network and there's a requirement where whenever your traffic exits your corporate network, it has to go through a proxy. And we see this when we set up our new laptops, corporate laptops, you have a proxy which you supply in the settings. Without that, your internet won't work because it won't allow, the proxy won't allow traffic without supplying the proxy details. So that's where we have to supply the proxy details so the driver knows how to exit your corporate network. So some people might have an error message from the driver saying that we are unable to connect to the ServiceNow instance, and that's obvious because your driver does not know how to go to the ServiceNow instance without the proxy. The proxy is going to come in the way. So what we're going to do is we are going to supply the proxy details in the custom properties. And if all of the tutorial part has worked for a couple of people, they can just stop the video from here. This troubleshooting aspect, it's only there for people who are having problems connecting to the ServiceNow instance. So until now, if the video has helped other people, please like the video. Mention in the comments if you are facing any other problems. Watch the troubleshooting part, which is going to follow after this. But let me know if you have any other problems. I'll help in the comments as well, because we also had many problems when we first set it up. The ServiceNow documentation is also very helpful, so you can check that one as well. But for the people who for whom it's working until now, they can skip this part because this is just a troubleshooting aspect. Okay, so for the people who have proxy and it's not allowing to connect directly to the ServiceNow instance without supplying the proxy details, what you have to mention is just put a semicolon after the URL, and then you have to supply the proxy host. Let's maybe type it in Notepad because that's going to be easier for a lot of people to read. Okay, so you already have the custom property URL. After that, you just have to put a semicolon and then a parameter for proxy host. So proxy host is, it could be your IP or host name, either of those. This will be provided by your network administrators. In fact, this might also be available in your corporate laptop's proxy as well. So you just have to supply those details. So proxy host, it could either be the IP address, maybe just some random, we'll put it for now. So that's your proxy host or IP, and then followed by a semicolon, the port of your proxy. So proxy port will be, maybe that's a custom port. So if let's say 4273 for your corporate network, this is just a hypothetical port. So these are the details for proxy. After you supply these in the custom properties, the driver will know that there's a proxy involved in the corporate network, and it's going to bypass that proxy with these proxy details and then go to the ServiceNow instance. This will slow things down, obviously. This will slow down refreshes if you have proxy in between, but that's just a part and parcel of how you operate in corporate networks. Without a proxy, they won't allow you to go out to the internet. And of course, on top of that, we have a couple of other things as well. If your proxy requires authentication, sometimes it might not require, but if it does, there's a proxy configuration documentation as well for the ServiceNow ODBC driver. So it's all there in the documentation. I'm just helping you out if you face any problem connecting to the database from the driver. So the proxy details are done. Now defining ACL rules for the ODBC role. So this is something the ServiceNow admins should do. Let's say, for example, the ODBC role. See, when we were creating the user, the ODBC test user, we supplied the ODBC role. So it had couple of inherited roles like the ITIL, which gave us access by default to the tables like incident and maybe even change on other tables. Sometimes it won't do it by default. Sometimes you might have custom tables, and it might throw an error that the user is not allowed as part of the ACLs to access the table. So for that, now this is something your ServiceNow admins will do. I'm just showing you where to do that. So they'll have to elevate the role. They'll have to become security admins. So this is all the administration side of things. So this is just that we are defining the access control list for the tables. So in system security, there's an access control. Obviously, you as end users won't have access to this. Your ServiceNow admins might have. So on the top right, they have to create a new access control, and they'll have to the operation obviously will be select read. So this is something important. They don't have to give the create access or maybe read, write, edit access to the specific table. So it's just going to be read access. So name. So what table name do they want to put it on? For example, in this case, if you're not able to access the incident table, which is going to be quite weird because ITL role will give you that access, but incident table here could be any other table as well. And then they have to insert a new row for this access rule. So we are creating an access control rule, and we can insert that allow the ODBC role to have access to this. Okay, maybe I'll have to save it. Let me save this. So this is only when your user is not able to have access to the underlying tables which you're writing queries on. Okay, yeah, I had to double click on that. So role, we are going to give access to the ODBC role for the specified tables because by default, for some weird reason, you didn't have access. So this is the second troubleshooting. By default, the ODBC role, we have given the ODBC role to the ODBC user, which we have created here. And for that role, we are giving access to the incident table. So this is all ServiceNow admin stuff. They'll be aware of what is going on. So you don't have to even explain this to them. But I'm just putting it out there if some people are having trouble with accessing a particular table from your queries. So that was the second thing. If you are having trouble, and of course, if there are any other questions, you put them in the comment section. I'll see if I can help you guys out because we've also been there. I was setting it up for a couple of friends of mine, and they had a lot of problems because corporate networks, usually there are tight securities, there are proxies involved, and even the documentation is really helpful. If you're still having trouble, let me know in the comments. I'll help you out. I'll respond to your comments as soon as I can, and I'll help you sort it out. So I hope this video was helpful. This was the biggest question that everybody had, that how do we connect from Power BI desktop directly to ServiceNow without any third-party drivers, obviously. So this is provided by ServiceNow itself. And I'll cover the gateway part as well. Let's see how many people come to this video, how many people come back with the questions. Once everyone is set with Power BI desktop, then we'll set up the gateway configuration as well. So we'll cover that up in maybe next video. But for now, I think everyone's going to be good. At least they'll start building the reports. And just a final tip, please don't go overboard with this. The driver is meant for lightweight reporting. Put where conditions, a lot of where conditions, if that helps. But don't bring back all of the data. Obviously, it's going to time out if you bring select star from without a where condition, but don't do that. That's all. Thank you.